only on my wall and the other justices have it in their chambers, the Southern Poverty Law Center has it on a plaque outside. But they'll protest anything about God. In fact, they got it from Martin Luther King, which he did quote it. And I don't think Martin Luther King would ever deny it came from the Bible. But they won't say that. They won't say that. And I just think this is a particular time. It's a very special time for you to be here. And it is special because of what's going on in our country. And I hope we're not like that older lady, that we're not listening or can't hear. It doesn't reach us. Or that older man who just forgot. Or maybe they just have a lack of understanding. Or maybe we have forgotten God. Maybe we're tired of Him too. Maybe we're just tired of recognizing there's a higher being. But you know, that's what this country began on. On August 1st, 1776, outside the Philadelphia State House, there stood a man by the name of Samuel Adams. He was cousin to John. He was a little older. And he was telling a group of people on the next day they were going to sign formally the Declaration of Independence. They did not all sign it on July 4th. They signed it on August 2nd, 1776. And he was going to explain to them what they had done. And when he said this, he said, I would gladly have declined an honor to which I find myself unequal. I have not the calmness and impartiality which the infinite importance of this occasion demands. I will not deny the charge of my enemies. The resentment for the accumulated injuries of our country and an ardor for glory rising to enthusiasm may deprive me of that accuracy of judgment and expression which men of cooler passions might possess. Let me beseech you then to hear me with caution, to examine without prejudice, and to correct the mistakes into which I may be hurried by my zeal. In other words, he was so much on fire for his country that he didn't want them to misunderstand him. And he was a man of plain speech. He said during the speech, he said, if you love wealth better than liberty, the tranquility of servitude more than the animating contest of freedom, go from us in peace. We ask not your counsel or your arms. Crouch down and lick the hands that feed you. May your chains set light upon you. And may posterity forget that you were ever our countrymen. Now that man didn't mind offending people. He didn't mind speaking the truth. And then he said this, we have explored the temple of royalty and found that the idol that we have bowed down to has eyes that see not, ears that hear not our prayers, and a heart like the nether millstone. But we have this day restored the sovereign, to whom alone all men ought to be obedient. He reigns in heaven, and with a perpetuous eye beholds his subjects, assuming that freedom of thought and dignity of self-direction which he bestowed upon them. From the rising to the setting sun, may his kingdom come. I noticed just the other day, he said, restoring the dignity of self-direction. Dignity? Well, that's just what Justice Kennedy was talking about in same-sex marriage. Only he doesn't understand the word. Dignity is given of God.
That's right.
Not government.
That's right.
And he gave dignity to man and woman. In fact, you all know when you consummate a marriage, that act is a dignified act. But we can't change it to an undignified act and call it dignity. Amen. Then we call good evil and evil good. We put darkness for light and light for darkness. We put bitter for sweet, sweet for bitter. We can't change God's law.
That's right.
We just don't have that power. Now, if anybody wants to take that down and put it in print, I'll stand behind it. You can't change God's law and get away with it. Because if you do, you tamper with our law. But going back to what Samuel Adams said, what do you mean we restored the sovereign? God never left his throne. No, he hadn't. He hadn't. But men had denied him. The children of Israel cried out to Samuel and said, away with him. I'm sorry. They cried out to Samuel and said, give us a king. And Samuel said, you've got one. But we want a king to be like all other men. Samuel told the Lord that. And the Lord said, hearken unto the voice of the people, Samuel. For they have not rejected you. They've rejected me, that I should not reign over them. So he let them have a king. And as you know, they had troubles thereafter. Until that day that God sent the true king. He sent the true king, Jesus. And what did the people do? They cried out, away with him, crucify him. We have no king but Caesar. So you see what our forefathers did, and what we should remember about our birthday is they restored the acknowledgement of the sovereignty of God. They have founded this nation on the laws of nature and of nature's God. Now, a lot of people, when they read that phrase in the Declaration, that's why I printed that pamphlet. They think it was just some feel-good term. Something they just wanted to say. They don't teach it in law school, by the way. Although the Declaration of Independence, as I said, is part of our organic law, according, not to me, the United States Code. The book that lists all the laws of a country, to include the Constitution, says that the Declaration is organic law. Now, if it's organic law, we ought to look at it because it's got something very special to say to us. It tells us where we get our rights. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And you know, when they wrote in the 4th, 5th, and 14th Amendment, protection for life, you know there was a definition. Right out of Blackstone's contained in the pamphlet. Life was the immediate gift of God, a right inherent in nature in every individual. And it begins in contemplation of law as soon as the infant stirs in his mother's womb. What right do we have to go change definitions?
That's right.
We don't have a right. Now, if you all know what I feel about right to life, I've made it easy. We printed for everybody, and we've got several copies back there, a copy of my concurrence in Hicks in 2014, April. And it'll tell you about why we must recognize life within the womb. And get you a copy of that, and it will give you some background, and also the pamphlet. But you know, it all fails if we don't acknowledge God.
That's right.
It all fails if we reduce God to religion. That's the error. You know, when they took the 10 Commandments out of the courthouse here, they wanted to remove what I was saying, the acknowledgement of God. And you heard what the prosecutor said, will you continue to acknowledge God? See, it wasn't about the 10 Commandments, and it wasn't about a monument. It was about the recognition of a sovereign God. Well, they said, well, that's unfair to other people. That's unfair to other religions. Well, I'm sorry, but this country was not founded on Mohammed. It was not founded on Buddha. It was not founded on secular humanism. This country was founded upon God. And anybody that wants to argue that proposition argues against the whole history of our country and our birth certificate.